prospect number one center? If they do, who's potentially available?
I don't know. I mean, in the history of this organization, have they acquired a number one center? You
No.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I was talking to Parisi the other day, and we were talking about the team, and I'm doing a big story for his birthday. His birthday's in 2 days, and I'm doing kind of a big story of looking ahead and looking behind, and we were talking about how, like, when year 2 and 3 of them making the playoffs after the Parisi Suter contracts, he was convinced that they were just a great center away from being a cup contender. And just it's never happened, and now they've sort of regressed here the last couple of years to now the point that he's alarmed that they're potentially in a rebuilding situation, and so do the Wild have those assets? They're not exactly full of what we would consider blue chip prospects right now to go get that guy. And usually teams aren't looking to just trade that guy away. So I'm sure that Paul Fenn has identified the need. And Paul Fenn himself says, yeah, we don't have a number one center, but we have a lot of 2s and 3s. Well, that doesn't win you a cup. It just doesn't. And he knows that. So I'm sure that's going to be something that he's going to try to pursue here for the rest of his time in Minnesota. And we'll see if it happens. But, it's hard to. His other issue is to rebuild that prospect pool and not trade away first and second round picks. And to do that, now you're in a quandary, because usually those are the type of things that you use as the chips to go get the top players. And so he's trying to do 2 things at once, and it's very, very difficult from a GM standpoint.
2 more questions. Thanks to all of our sponsors, listeners, and people who come out to Tin Shed July 31st, 7 p.m. Come out and say hello. From Carson, who do you see having the most points on this year's Wild team?
I don't know.
All right.
I mean, if Parisi's healthy,
he'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, especially if he's going to be playing with Zuccarello.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Zucker's going to be very, very motivated this year to have a bounce back year. Fiala is, again, looking at his social media, it just seems to be working out like the pro that he is this offseason to try to break out here, and they need him to break out. And somebody recently, I believe at The Athletic, actually did top 10 players in the NHL to potentially break out this season. Donato and Fiala were 2 of his 10, and the Wild need it. As we've said often, we know what they have in the veterans. We know what they have in Suter and Spurgeon. We know what they have in Parisi, Stahl, Koivu. Zucker, these guys. For this team to get to where the Wild want themselves to go, and for fans to see them go, they need the Cunnins, the Greenways, the X, the Donatos, the Fialas to now take the next step in their careers, to start producing, to not just take periphery roles on this team. And if it doesn't happen, this will be a disappointing season for the Wild. If it does happen, I'm not saying, again, that to get to that person's question that Fiala and Donato are going to lead them in points, but they need these guys to absolutely break out this season.
Last question. Thanks for all the good Twitter questions from Cody Kobernick. In a situation where Spurgeon and Zucker are both traded, what kind of return would benefit the Wild's retool?
Well, I mean, again, what you're calling a retool. To me, if you're going to trade these guys, you need to load up on actual players that can play. They are not going full rebuild. They're not going to get picks and prospects for them. They're going to want guys that could play. And to me, that is, if you're going to trade Spurgeon, you've got to trade him to a team that's going to be able to re-sign him at the $7 or $8 million that he's going to want. But then they're going to have to be willing to part with a couple big pieces, potentially a goal scorer. But it would be nice to get a number one center, and same thing with Zucker there. I don't think that Paul Fenn was overly enamored with the potential returns that he was getting in a lot of the Jason Zucker trade talks, and now I think it's without a doubt that Zucker's back here next season.
Interesting. Good stuff from Michael. As always, thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. We'll see you July 31st, 7 o'clock at Tin Shed, tinshedmn.com down in Savage. Have a good summer.
Yep.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. what's coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive